Welcome to the Technical Writing Success Podcast from Kurt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. This is episode 178. I'm your host, Fred Jones.
And I'm Daphne Blake.
So today we're tackling a topic that might feel a little uncomfortable for a lot of you listening. We're looking at a question that's been bubbling under the surface for a few years, but here in 2026, it's finally boiled over.
And that question is the job title technical writer officially obsolete?
It's a heavy question.
It is. But we should be clear right off the bat, we aren't talking about the death of the work. I mean, documentation still needs to happen. This is about a metamorphosis, a complete shift in identity.
Exactly. We're looking at a reality where the job is becoming less about crafting perfect sentences in solitude and more about surviving the chaos of scale. And to guide us through this, we're looking at a really provocative article on LinkedIn by Douglas Erickson.
Yeah, it's titled A Shift, Technical Writer to Documentation Product Manager. And it just dropped on January 22, 2026.
So very fresh. And it lands right in the middle of this strange moment we're all in. Erickson opens with a bit of a bombshell. He calls the title Technical Writer ironic.
Which is such a great place to start. He argues that the role has never really been just about writing. I mean, if you've been in this field for any length of time, you know this.
Oh, for sure.
The job is about translating engineering intentions, which are often, messy and complex, into customer expectations, which are usually pretty demanding.
Right. The writing is just the output. It's the final coat of paint, but the real job is building the house.
Exactly. But the irony is that the title writer feels so fixed in the past. It sounds like a scribe at a desk. Meanwhile, the people actually doing the work have had to evolve so massively just to keep up.
And that brings us to the elephant in the room. Or maybe the robot in the room, Gen AI. Erickson has this phrase for the current climate that I just love. He calls it the manufactured zeitgeist.
It's a perfect description, isn't it? It just captures that feeling that everyone is talking about AI, not because they necessarily want to, but because the market has just decided this is the topic.
It's the forced conversation.
Yeah.
You go into a meeting and someone asks, so how are we using AI for this?
Yeah.
Even when it makes no sense.
And in 2026, that zeitgeist has real consequences for your career. Erickson points out this very dangerous line of thinking at the executive level. They see an LLM, a chatbot that can generate text in seconds, and they look at your job title, writer, and they think,
hey, this machine writes. Why am I paying a human a salary to do what the machine does for pennies?
It's that shallow executive edict. Erickson calls it replacing humans with a flavor of non-determinism.
We should probably unpack that term, non-determinism.
Sure. So deterministic means if you put an A, you always get B. It's reliable, predictable. Non-deterministic means you put an A and you might get B. Or you might get something completely made up, a hallucination.
So executives are trading reliable human output for unpredictable machine output because it's cheaper. That seems short-sighted.
It is. And Erickson warns this leads to what he calls tech doc slop.
That is a visceral image. Slop.
It's accurate, though. It's just buckets of unchecked AI-generated text. It looks like documentation. It has headers, bullet points, but it doesn't actually help anyone. It lacks context, accuracy, and strategy.
So without a human governing that loop, you just get slop. But this is where the article gets really interesting for anyone listening. Erickson says this pressure is causing a massive split in the profession. He sees two distinct paths forming.
And this is the part that might sting a little, but it's crucial. He divides the field into two groups. Group A is basically the purists.
For purists. Okay, describe them.
These are the craftspeople, the folks who specialize in flawless grammar, pixel-perfect formatting, and doing deep, deep research on a topic before typing a word.
The people who lose sleep over a misplaced semicolon. And, to be fair, that used to be the gold standard.
It was. But Erickson's observation is that these folks are increasingly being pushed into contract gigs. They aren't getting those full-time strategic roles anymore.
Ouch. So if the purists are being pushed to the side, where is the full-time work going?
That's Group B, the product-aligned. These are the writers who saw what was coming and, well, they chased the tools, they learned project management, they embedded themselves in product organizations.
So they stopped obsessing over the sentence and started obsessing over the process.
That's the core of his argument. The money, the stability, it's all moving toward people who can manage documentation as a product. And to survive, you have to become what he calls a documentation product manager.
A documentation product manager. It sounds impressive, but what does that person actually do on a Tuesday morning?
Well, according to Erickson, it's chaotic. It's not a calm job. It's strategy and planning, sure. But it's also about operating with almost zero support, except for whatever Gen AI tools you can find, and relying on the good graces of engineers.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It's a hustle. He lists the day-to-day tasks, and writing is barely on the list. Instead, you're dealing with PRDs. You're living in Jira. You're in GitHub. You're running stand-ups.
Wait, running stand-ups. Since when do writers run stand-ups?
Since they became product managers, apparently, you aren't just receiving info, you are extracting it. It's about creating templates so that the engineers can do the rough drafting. You become the facilitator, not the sole author.
This touches on a really controversial point he makes. He argues that workmanlike brilliance, that beautifully crafted paragraph, matters less to the business than coverage at scale.
That is a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? If you got into this because you love language, that feels like an attack. But you have to look at it from the business perspective in 2026.
Okay, so why does the business prefer scale over brilliance?
They prioritize existence. The product is exploding. The company cares that the docs exist for every feature, that they're accurate enough to stop a support ticket. They care much less if the tone is perfect. Good enough at scale beats perfect in isolation.
So if I spend 3 days making one page perfect, but 10 other features just launched with nothing, I'm failing.
In the eyes of the business, yes. You're creating documentation debt. We mentioned Gen AI as a threat, but Erickson also sees it as a survival tool. He's not anti-AI at all.
Right. He says you almost can't do this new job without it, but he's very specific about how he uses it.
He doesn't use it to do the thinking. He uses it for the boring crap.
I loved his examples here. Formatting API reference docs, writing rejects.
Regular expressions, yes.
It's the perfect use case.
Right.
Let the bot handle the syntax, you handle the strategy.
Hmm.
He also admits, and I appreciate this honesty, that he hasn't perfected this role yet. He says his methods are still in early access.
Which I think is comforting. If you're listening and feeling overwhelmed, just know that even the people writing about this are figuring it out as they go.
Speaking of figuring it out, we're going to pause right there for just a moment. Let's take a brief break for a special message from our producer, Kurt Robbins.
Hi, this is Kurt Robbins. First, thanks for listening. I truly appreciate your support. I want to let you know that I'm currently accepting new clients. My rates are affordable, and I have more than 25 years of experience working for enterprise companies like Microsoft, Northrop Grumman, Oracle, PNC Bank, FedEx, USAA, and Wells Fargo, among many others. If you want to improve your IT documentation and communications, hire me. I deliver fast, know how to use AI to improve efficiency and accuracy, and love going the extra mile to satisfy my clients. Thank you for subscribing and listening. Back to you, Daphne and Fred.
Welcome back to the Technical Writing Success Podcast.
Okay, so before the break, we were getting into this idea of coverage at scale and how it's forcing this shift from writer to product manager.
Yeah, and I want to dig into why this is happening.
Yeah.
I mean, why can't we just hire more writers? Why is the answer always make the one writer do more?
Erickson explains this really well. As a company grows, the product surface, the amount of stuff that needs documenting, grows exponentially. But the budget for writers, that usually stays flat.
Right. A startup gets a big funding round. They hire 10 engineers. They don't hire 10 writers.
They might not even give you one. So you, one person, are expected to document an exploding product. You physically cannot type fast enough to keep up with 10 engineers shipping code every day. You will drown.
And that brings us to Erickson's solution. He has this great mathematical metaphor. He says, solve for the integral.
Okay, I haven't done calculus in a while. What does he mean by that?
So think of it this way. If you were just writing document by document, task by task, you are working on specific points on a line. But the integral is the total area under the curve. It's the accumulation, he's saying. Stop trying to just type more words. Step back and solve for the whole system. Manage the accumulation of knowledge.
That's a fascinating way to put it. So stop writing every word yourself and start building a system that generates the words.
Exactly. It's about architecture. It's about building a pipeline where information flows. You're building the factory, not handcrafting the widgets.
And to build that factory, you need different skills. Erickson lists a few specific ones to pitch to employers.
What are they?
First, project management, Agile specifically. You have to speak the language of the developers. Second is automation, finding ways to do things once. And third is using Gen AI to 10x everything, especially words. You have to show them you are a force multiplier.
I can do the work of 3 people because I know how to leverage these agents. That's a powerful pitch. I do want to bring in some of the community reaction here. because the comments on his article were pretty lively.
It definitely struck a nerve.
A comment from Brooke Brannon stood out.
Mm-hmm.
She really leaned into the people aspect of this. She emphasized that building relationships with engineers is absolutely critical.
Yes, because you can't just sit in a silo and write. If you're a product manager for docs, you need that social capital. You need engineers to want to help you.
Because you're asking them to use your templates to do some of the drafting. You need their buy-in. But then there was an interesting pushback from Xander Harris about the engineers. Remember how Erickson talked about non-determinism?
Yeah, the AI is chaotic.
Well, Xander commented, hey man, I'm not non-deterministic, neither are any of the engineers I know. And it really highlights the tension, doesn't it? The writer is stuck in the middle.
You've got the precise deterministic engineers on one side and the chaotic, non-deterministic AI and market forces on the other. And your new job as a documentation product manager is to impose order on all that chaos.
So looking at the big picture, if you're listening to this and you've been a writer for 10 or 15 years, you love the craft. This could all sound a bit depressing, like the thing you love is being devalued.
It might feel that way, but Erickson's conclusion is actually pretty rallying. He issues a call to action.
Which is?
Don't let the job title limit you. The core value of what you do hasn't changed. You translate machines into meaning. That is still the job, and it's more necessary than ever.
With all this AI-generated noise, the signal's more valuable.
Exactly. But the method has to change. You have to pitch yourself differently. You don't say, I write great documentation.
What's the new pitch?
The new pitch is, I am necessary for quality content at scale. I am the governor of the AI loop. I ensure your automated processes don't churn out garbage that confuses customers and drives up support costs.
Governor of the AI loop. I really like that. It sounds authoritative. In control.
It puts you in the driver's seat. It turns you from a cost center into a strategic asset.
It's interesting. It requires letting go of the ego of being the creator. You aren't the artist painting the picture anymore. You're the gallery owner curating the exhibit.
That's a beautiful analogy. And it leads me to a final thought I want to leave everyone with today.
Go for it.
We've talked about titles and tools, but the real question is about identity. If the job is no longer about writing, but about managing the architecture of knowledge with AI and Jira tickets, are we ready to let go of the writer identity to save the career?
That is the question. Because for many of us, writer is who we are, not just what we do.
Exactly. But if we cling to that title too tightly, we might drown in the slop. But if we embrace documentation product manager, if we embrace the chaos and the scale, we might find we have more influence, more stability, and maybe a more interesting job.
A trade-off. Identity for survival. And maybe a better future.
A future with a lot more Jira tickets, for sure.
There's always a catch. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up. It's a brave new world out there, but you have the skills to navigate it. Just remember, solve for the integral.
Solve for the integral.
Thank you for listening to the Technical Writing Success Podcast from Kurt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, and share. We'll see you next time.